Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the walking. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls let it tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch me, please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. We came for war, man, forget about peace. We take the west side, take on the east. I'ma put them in the cage, never let out the. Yeah, I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys. Man so tough, but mans keep walking, yeah. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls, let it tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch me, please use caution. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that.
Happy Monday, everybody. It's Mike. Dan and Stu are off today. Amin Al-Hassan's supposed to be in. He's got some travel issues. He'll be joining us in progress. But thankfully, I have a good team around me, half of which was at the parade yesterday. Jeremy did some bang-up work out there. You got the clip. You got the clip. And even if you were watching at home on the broadcast, the way that they directed it, they missed the meat of it. You don't have a shot of Aaron Ekblad saying it. Do we have that video of Aaron Ekblad saying the thing that will resonate from this parade? Because I thought all in all, it was such a perfect South Florida parade for hockey. It had all the things that are good about South Florida and it had all the bad things about South Florida, especially when it comes to hockey, but I thought that South Florida acquitted itself nicely. Here is the moment, courtesy of Jeremy Taché on X. Aaron Ekblad, one of the leaders on this team, comes out with the traffic cone, and for context, Brooks Koepka was famously caught at a Panther game saying, "Ekblad, you stink, you're a traffic cone," and that's how you know Brooks Koepka is a real Panther fan, because this is not something, yes, granted, Aaron Ekblad, you get one over on Brooks Koepka. Brooks Koepka, no one calls your fandom into question. You are not an actual Panther fan if Aaron Ekblad hasn't frustrated you several times over. But credit to him, he stopped Connor McDavid 1v1. He had that moment. And Jeremy, you got this moment from the parade.
You, Brooks Koepka! Woo!
Jeremy and Roy, specifically, how are you guys doing? I asked you before the show if you did the old-timey Looney Tunes thing of just putting your bare feet in a hot tin of water with a thermometer in your mouth. I am a fair weather fan. I was on my way to the parade. I was driving down from Orlando. I got as far as the Galleria Mall, and the downpour was just too much. I couldn't leave my car to get to the place. Unfortunately, I left Orlando maybe a bit late, and I realized after being rained on all weekend, I can't do this, but you guys had your jobs to do. You guys had to cover this momentous occasion. You couldn't just do what I did, which is just watch it from my couch at home. How are you guys doing? Are you feeling okay, Stuffy?
Oh, yeah, I'm feeling all right. Actually, at the parade, the current shirt and jacket I have on is a replacement from the shirt that I actually wore at the parade. I went to the Tommy Bahama and got myself a Panthers championship
Incredible.
T-shirt. And
At the Tommy Bahama?
Is that your first ever Tommy Bahama purchase?
It is.
Okay. Jeremy, you got, not only did you get rained on, but Ryan Lomberg, I see it in the videos being looped behind Tony. He dunked a beer all over your head.
It was a truly. It was amazing. It was truly amazing to have that experience because I was already clearly soaked by the rain for hours and hours of downpour. Lomberg came up and clearly wanted to have that experience, but it was such a special day and something so unique. I'm definitely feeling it today. I'm exhausted. I think you can hear it in my voice. But, like, to be in the fans and all these people who, through thunderstorms, through lightning, literally making static electricity come through the speakers from the stage, everybody stuck around. The fans that were lined up at 6 or 7 a.m. alongside the barricades, it was like nobody left, and everyone was there through literal thunderstorms, waiting out and having an unbelievable time.
I love the fact that one of the last things that Ryan Lomberg will do as a Florida Panther is pour beer on the top of Jeremy Taché's head.
I'm happy about it, too.
I'm sad that Lomberg is going.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at least he gave us that parting shot. And I was bummed that he didn't take the microphone at one point, but it seemed as though nobody who was up for a contract extension spoke except for Sam Reinhart, who sent a video message. By the way, your friend, bad job. Bad job by your best friend. Sam Reinhart skips a parade because he's supporting his best friend who's getting married. Be a little bit better with the calendar. Maybe move that one into July.
Yeah. I don't know, man, because next weekend would have been July 4th weekend, and that's a whole thing.
Yeah,
right?
no, look, you get married when you get married, and Sam Reinhart missed like 3 opportunities to make sure that this conflict wouldn't pop up. But then he got the game winner in Game 7. But the good news that a lot of Panther fans woke up to, and there was a lot of momentum for months and months and months, it was assumed by people close to that organization, who cover that organization, that Sam Reinhart would be coming back to the Florida Panthers. And these terms are tossed out like hometown discount. Look, this is a player that really fulfilled his promise. He came into the league with a lot of hype, struggled early in Buffalo, came here, became a 50-goal scorer after not being a top liner initially. He had to work his way up. Perfect partner for Barkov on that line. One of the sneaky better two-way players in the league. Sam Reinhart does not take defensive possessions off, Roy.
He was 4th in the Selke voting for best defensive forward this season.
So you got to imagine this ages pretty well because the annual value on this contract's $8.65 million. That is a bargain for a 50-goal scorer. That is a two-way player that scored the game-winning goal in Game 7. You consider what Forsling's number is, and that discount applied. You're paying those two players, who are elite players, about $14 million. Panthers right now have about $11 million clear, and a lot of free agents. I don't know how Brandon Montour comes back. That doesn't seem possible given some of the money that is being spent on defensemen in this market. He may have to go get his money. Also, you can't bring him back and pay him more than Forsling, or that much more than Forsling. So that one's a little bit tricky, Jeremy.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a different look in the surrounding players, but what's special about what you have now is a team that just won the Stanley Cup and so many talented players in your core locked up, not for like 3 more years. Sam Reinhart's now here for 8 years. Matthew Tkachuk signed a long contract with you initially. Alexander Barkov's going to be here forever.
Just 28 years old, and he's already been here forever.
Right. So to have this group locked up long-term, not for 3 or 4 seasons like you might see in the NBA, but here in the NHL, 8 years of this group, it's really a great time to be a Panthers fan.
And the Panthers still have to re-sign Anton Lundell, who's a restricted free agent.
Yeah,
So
where do they think that deal's going to fall in between? Because a restricted free agent, he's going to get some decent money. He is presently a third liner, one of the better third liners, and again, fits the identity and culture of a lot of these players, are two-way players. Probably going to get his, so that's going to eat into your chunk. You look at the available free agents right now for the Florida Panthers. Maybe Stenlund comes back. Stolarz is getting interest. He had did Stolarz have the best goals against average in the league?
Yes.
Your backup goalie, he could probably command some like mid number 1 money out there. Jessica and Tony and Juju, my experience, I don't know if you guys spent your Sunday watching on TV. It was all across the local channels. They all gave up on the dump button. I was bummed that I couldn't be out there in the parade, but I pivoted to watching on my couch, and I really enjoyed it. And I wonder, Jess, was this something that you were laughing at as someone that's not necessarily a South Florida sports fan, or was this something that you felt galvanized an audience and was like a pretty unique parade experience? Because that's where I fell.
I did think it was really funny just how terrible the weather was, because there was lightning. I was watching the radar from my warm and cozy living room, just thinking to myself, man, I really hope Roy and Jeremy and Greg Cody don't get struck by lightning today, because that would be a really sad way for this all to end.
We were close.
It was a very funny. It's so rare to have mornings like that in South Florida where it just is a complete wall of thunderstorms first thing when you wake up, and it was perfect that it was on the morning of the Stanley Cup parade.
It was also very Florida that they didn't evacuate, because I've been to large public gatherings. I was at Universal for 2 days prior. If there's lightning in the area, you go inside. There was a large congregation of people with a lot of electrical equipment next to a very large body of water. They were not moved.
Out on the ocean, I was looking out on the ocean, right, and I saw this big wall of clouds with rain coming down, but I also saw 4 freighters out in the ocean. About 10 minutes later, gone. A wall of rain made them disappear.
The people didn't get moved out, which I found curious. Logistically, probably more dangerous. I'm sure someone was crunching that, but I've been at Lollapaloozas where they evacuate the entire grounds.
If it were a golf course, the siren would have been going off all morning. There would not be people out there.
Thankfully, no one got hurt. And by the time you got to the end of the parade, it added to the aesthetic. Everyone's soaking wet from just pouring beers. I've never seen someone wandering through a parade with a bucket of beer. And that's what he had 10 glass bottles in a bucket that I think he literally picked up at the Elbow Room, that he just made a pit stop along the way. He got out of the bus, went to the Elbow Room, got a bucket of beer, and also took a dip in the ocean. Tony, you've recently caught hockey fever. Were you spending your Sunday on your couch watching the parade?
I had a couple things to do, like family things. We had some lunch that I had to attend. So I was watching on social media. My brother-in-law was there at the parade. So he was sending us videos of like the downpour and just like everybody soaking wet, just like having fun and stuff. I would never have gone to that. Not because I don't love the Panthers.
But it's in Broward.
One. It was in Broward. Two, the rain, like you have to get ready for a rain situation like that, right? Like I got to get my shitty shoes. I got to wear socks I don't really like. Like the swag can't be on 100 because I'm getting soaked the entire time. Plus, I don't think I'm a poncho guy.
Yeah, Jeremy, you did not wear shitty shoes.
No, this was a nightmare.
Allegedly.
Because I did not. Yeah, well, allegedly is fair.
Well, he did not wear his shitty shoes.
Right, not my version of shitty shoes.
sorry, I
Still
love you,
shitty
Jeremy.
shoes generally. No, but this was like, obviously I was wearing a water taxi poncho because I was not prepared for this. I have a Bally Sports branded like rain jacket, and I guess did not anticipate. I looked at the weather. It said on Saturday night, it said 30% chance of rain at 10 a.m. And I was like, okay, it'll rain for 15, 20 minutes like it does in Florida. I'll get under some shelter. I'll probably already be there, and then I'll be fine, and it'll be over. And it was while I was on my way on the water taxi, standing on the second floor of it, that all of a sudden the skies open up and there is a torrential downpour. So I was soaking wet underneath the poncho that I then put on that had no real purpose, I guess, after that. I probably should have just not worn the poncho, but I didn't want to get worse. And I anticipated, all right, it'll be a half hour, maybe an hour of rain. And then it rained all day long.
It's still raining right now.
It's still raining. That doesn't happen here, especially on the beach where the wind is supposed to push those storms away. And yet, here we are experiencing that on the day of the parade. But the energy was spectacular as a result. Like it was... It could have been an amazing day without all of it, but there was something about the thunderstorms and people sticking through it, and every person I spoke to had been a fan for 20 plus years, and now they're there enjoying this experience together.
First of all, rookie mistake. You have to follow the National Weather Service on Twitter.
Yeah, that's
because
on me.
They were on top of it from the moment I woke up yesterday morning. I was like, ooh, this is going to be interesting. They might have to call off this parade.
I was worried about getting sunburned.
Second thing, are the videos of the players on the buses waving to like 6 people fake news? Like it seemed like the parade
So that's
the
the
parade
very
route was
beginning.
not well.
The bad
populated.
video that's circulating is literally the start of the parade where the bus came around Las Olas and you could see the very edge of the parade on one side. So the further you got in and the deeper you got toward the stage down A1A was where the majority of people were.
This happens every parade.
Sounds like they should have had their parade in Boston. Oh, too soon. But yeah, it's just hilarious. This is a perfect example of saying, like, bro, you making fun of parades and celebrations when your team is at the house. You, sir, are the biggest joker. I don't give a damn if it was one person at this parade. The Florida Panthers are champions, goddammit. That's all that matters. People who making fun of parades, you are a loser at the house.
Raise
Sit
that
down.
cup.
Yeah, I had mentally prepared myself because for every parade, outside of ones that happen in Kansas City, every parade will have these isolated views of a thinner part of the parade, and it'll go viral, and it'll be the visual that goes out from that parade. And I was already not going to let it bother me. I'm not going to make the excuses about the weather. I think South Florida acquitted itself quite nicely. There was a lot of energy. I think the Panthers were pretty smart about how they structured the entire thing. It was very clearly, let's have this big gathering place. I think with the rain and everything, it made for really cool visuals. And like Juju said, who cares? The whole thing is that we have 6 fans. This is the start of something. And I know everyone tapped into the 30 years. This Panther franchise has existed for 30 years in the South Florida market. And there are a lot of people that were at that parade that really just started giving them the time of day. And that's fine too. This is about building something. This is not a destination. It's a start of something, hopefully, for them. Tony, I saw you wanting to get in there. Do you want to defend the South Florida sports fan because you knew that these photos would be coming?
Of course, and I mean, especially when you talk about the Panthers, it's Broward, it's raining. You knew that you were going to get a smattering of people at some point just because, like, you hold up on the towels, like we have 6 fans or whatever. But Juju was saying, like, we're talking about a parade. I don't mean to sound like AI, but like not every single inch of the parade route is going to be stacked with people.
It's totally fine to have a sport that's still trying to find its footing. There hasn't been a real reason for this franchise to have a connection, particularly with the Miami-Dade fans. There hasn't been any real moment. This was a bizarre championship in that maybe I cared about this championship possibly more than any other local sports championship. But usually when other teams make a run, you see like stuff in shop windows, people wearing their jerseys. That may be the case in Broward. I don't know. But in Miami-Dade, it's one of those things that if I saw a person with the Panther hat on, I'd give them the DiCaprio point, and I would find occasional isolated instances of people being passionate. But this is hopefully something to build on. There weren't places that you could go to, especially in Miami-Dade, where you could have the Panther game on and ask for the sound and not get a funny look. And now I think we're finally turning that corner and we're building.
A lot of the cities that have Stanley Cups, obviously, are smaller cities in scope of Miami. And there's so much to do and there's so many things around that you don't have those small, like, shop windows with, like, Go Oilers or whatever, like.
Well,
I don't know about that.
I mean, Boston,
Chicago's pretty big. The
New
original
York,
6
Los
are,
Angeles.
the original 6 are
Columbus,
big markets.
St. Louis.
I think it's totally fine that we lean into the
Columbus does not have a Stanley Cup.
But you know what I mean, right?
The sideshow appeal of Florida. This is totally unique. They had a parade. An ice hockey team had a parade on the beach. It got
In pouring rain.
It should have been evacuated.
Absolutely.
It was pretty dangerous, and I thought that everything that happened last night was perfect for South Florida hockey and for this franchise and its fans.
There's a camaraderie that's starting to build amongst the people that either have been there for a month or 30 years, because I spent most of my day prior to the speeches and prior to the parade actually starting, walking through the rain to all of these people who'd been camped out there since, 5, 6, 7 a.m. And each time that I walked up to someone with a microphone, everybody behind them started chanting, "All 6 of us, all 6 of us," because there's an embracing of like, hey, we know that we're a new fan base. Relatively, we know that there are only so many of us that have been around watching hockey
for most of their
our
history.
lifetimes.
They've been a joke. They've
But
been a laughing stock
exactly.
of the franchise.
And I think there's an embracing of that and an acceptance of it, and now wanting to prove, like, hey, like you said, Mike, this is the beginning of something special. This isn't the end, but everyone was celebrating like it was the last day on earth. That's what the drinking was like. The hugs, the screaming, it was spectacular.
Well, you never know down here. When it rains that
That's
much,
also true.
It could actually be the last day.
Yeah, I'm embracing we live in a major city. The Tri-County area is huge, even though it's all #1 territory. And I'm embracing the boutique aspects of this, the novel aspects of this. And I hope that, much like what happened in Tampa, where the seeds were planted in 2004, and unfortunately, they're one of the great hockey towns in North America now. I can't imagine if there wasn't a lockout, a work stoppage after they won their first cup, but they kept building and almost had to kind of hit the reset button, start again, and they built the right way. And I really think South Florida can grow to really deeply appreciate hockey, but they got to have this kind of success. They have to keep making deep postseason runs. And I do think that we'll see the tide change a little bit, and maybe you'll see a few more Panther logos in mom and pop shops, and maybe you don't have to point at 3 people at the Publix. Maybe the Publix is adorned with Panther stuff.
Well, it was a grassroots situation in Tampa. I mean, they built from the ground up over there, and I think the Panthers have to do the same thing. Now they got that new facility in Fort Lauderdale with the War Memorial. They built a couple more rinks. You're going to have a lot of new young fans actually playing the sport. So if they can get these fans to play the sport, they can get these kids to play the sport, you'll grow the culture down here.
Throughout some of the properties we have here on DLS, I've made a list of things that are for other people. And I just wanted you guys to know, sports parades are for other people, not for me. I just wanted to let you guys know that.
You never went to any of the Heat parades?
I did, which is why I found out, you know what? Not for me, for other people.
Chris Cody and Ethan are in a Panther group chat that had a pretty good feeling about all of this happening. And they were actually lamenting in the group chat, like, and I know Ethan went to the parade. We should be in this parade. I'm like, what? We should be in the Panther parade? And they were citing Raheem Mostert was at the parade. I'm like, guys, Raheem Mostert didn't make a mockery of the entire Stanley Cup final. Of course they said no.
You think that's why we weren't in the parade?
I think we weren't in the parade because we were asking damn near 2 weeks before they actually won the thing. And I think the Greg Cody thing didn't help. And I think largely our show treated this we weren't reverential enough to Lord Stanley or the Florida Panthers. And I think Dan is naturally predisposed to want to make fun of sports. And I read an article about in Awful Announcing.
No.
I read an article in Awful Announcing that made it seem like for once in our show's really toxic history, they finally found a cause that united a lot of listeners. And that was cool to have that perspective, that people in Columbus, Ohio were rooting for the Panthers because they never gave hockey the time of day. And they've been hearing about Roy get the table and the CPR line and Randy Mueller goal calls for our show's 20 years. And they felt some kind of tie. I will say that it did not unite this show. It was very divisive here on this show. I was fighting with Juju. I was fighting with Greg. I was certainly fighting with Dan. It was all pretty bad. Emotions got ramped up after they blew that 3-0 lead. Telling you.
I mean, the argument you had with Greg broke contain. I was at Notre Dame last weekend, and people that do not watch hockey or the Le Batard Show were like, hey, so what's the deal with that Mike guy?
So, yeah, it wasn't a good look for me, and I knew that going in there. But you know how Dan does these things. Dan very clearly wanted that to happen.
Absolutely.
Because he was pushing all my buttons to make that happen. And at a certain point, I'm like, okay, then I guess we'll lean hard bit. And then I lean hard bit, and then the same thing always happens when I lean hard bit. And not only that, I'm leaning hard against like an octogenarian. And this is just not a good look for me at all. And yeah, Dan got what he wanted, and that's the cost of doing business with Dan.
And
but
we didn't get a float out of it.
No, but exactly.
Okay.
But nobody got a float out of it, luckily, because they didn't have any media on any of the floats.
No, they
Raheem
did not.
Mostert, like
Just Randy Mueller.
Let me tell you something. I was on two Miami Heat floats. Okay, I've got 2 parades under my belt. I was there next to Poppy hitting pots and pans. Like you bring South Florida luminaries, but we don't deserve that one because we made a joke of it. Because everything around here is a bit. And sports fandom usually is canon. And I will admit
Roy got punished more than anyone else for
I
this.
kind of got to do whatever I wanted.
Yeah. Well, you occupy a very unique space.
You don't count.
I will.
I was the only one that was calm in this situation. Like me.
You were never scared.
Never.
We know this about you, Roy.
But
I will underscore my own hypocrisy here. Usually, I'm taking the piss too, and everybody's sports fandom is there for the taking. I actually handled the Mario Cristobal not kneeling thing in stride. The Panthers thing got to me because I'm so sick of being that guy. I mean, how sick can you be if you're taking off your Rolex threatening an 80-year-old? But I guess there are performative aspects to this that, all right, F it, I'm here. It's kind of like when you're at a parade and you're soaking wet. At a certain point, you just stop giving an F. Your shoes are ruined, so you might as well enjoy yourself.
You say dump a truly on me, right, Jeremy?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was I mean, it was funny. If you look at the video, Ryan Lomberg did sort of pause for a second to make sure that I was cool with him pouring the drink on me. And the pause that I took before deciding whether or not to say yes was, should I drink this on camera or should I just have him pour it on my head? Because I had to make the obvious professional decision, as you can see in the video. Very professional of me. But I'll tell you, like, it was really cool how many of our show fans were out there yesterday, and it really did sort of galvanize because I was here every time I was walking through, there was somebody yelling Jer Bear or Jeremy or where's Chris, where's Mike, where's Roy, because everyone was really excited about it. And whenever I stopped to actually talk to people, they all asked, hey, were the last couple of weeks a bit? All of them, because I think everybody was legitimately concerned about how Metal Arc Media is holding up.
Did you know where Chris was? Because I'm looking for him.
No,
still.
was he at the parade?
Was he? No, he was not
at
the parade.
I think he decided after the 11 night, you know what? I'm good.
Yeah, I got to tell you, the 11 thing did help my decision making process, and that I kind of had my celebration with the Panthers. And I do want to take like the final 50 seconds of this segment to salute Ryan Lomberg, your colleague on the hockey show, David Dwork, did make it seem like Ryan Lomberg's going to get his money in the open market,
and he deserves it.
He deserves it. And I don't know if you saw the Wired for Sound from Game 7, while everybody had a sphincter that was this tight in that barn. You were there for that Game 7. That was as bizarre a pregame atmosphere as I've ever experienced in my life. What Ryan Lomberg delivered before that Game 7 is exactly what they needed. The juice. He's a high-energy guy. And also, he's pretty media savvy, because I could tell he recognizes guys like Jeremy and guys and girls that cover this franchise.
He absolutely does.
And he made it a celebration that everyone could be a part of. And Ryan Lomberg, there's a lot of 94 jerseys. He's not necessarily of a talent level that would necessarily reflect the amount of jerseys that are in that arena that wear 94. But he's had big-time playoff moments. He's a fan favorite. He's a physical guy. He's an energy guy. I just wish they handed him a microphone at that parade so we can have that one moment. But best of luck to him wherever he goes. Going to get all the Panthers shots up here in the early going, as this is more local and before Amin comes in here, because it's a fascinating time in the NBA. Paul George is headed to the Sixers, and the Miami Heat haven't done much, so we'll speak to that when Amin joins us. But there is a move that appears to be happening in the NHL, and I heard a lot of F the Lightning chants at the parade out there yesterday.
Well, that was about the thunderstorms and lightning, not the Tampa Bay Lightning.
They leaned in, and they took their
both.
pot shots. Chucky took another pot shot at Edmonton. And
I didn't even realize the symbolism of the Lightning almost ruining another Panthers Stanley Cup.
But not phased. The symbolism here, Jess, is that, once again, the Panthers are unfazed by the Lightning, not the other way
was in
around.
Steve
You're talking about
Goldstein's
ancient history at
You're
this
right,
point.
But, the Lightning ending the Panthers parade,
It would have been
cool.
terrible.
It would have been
Cool.
And you couldn't let that one happen.
For
But
everyone else.
while that parade was going on, the Tampa Bay Lightning made a very interesting move. They clear about $11.5 million in space. The Sergachev trade to Utah caught a lot of people off guard. Sergachev gave Tampa a big emotional lift coming back from a gruesome compound leg fracture. Really good player when I don't know if he's ever going to reach those levels again, but Might have been a difference maker had he been healthy for that entire series against the Florida Panthers. Who knows? Him
coming in during the series got them that one game.
Yeah. Oh, the pop that he got, I was there for that. It's crazy, and he's a good player. But he gets moved, and you assume, okay, if they're clearing all this space, they're clearly far apart on Stamkos. Maybe this is about getting Stamkos his money. Not the case. Steven Stamkos appears to be headed to one of 4 franchises in Nashville right now, getting a lot of the hot buzz. I think betting favorite for him to go to Nashville. But the room that they cleared was for Jake Gensel, which is a surprising move for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Everyone assumed that if Gensel does test the market, it won't be there because they don't have the room for him. The wide expectation was that he was going to re-sign with Carolina. Doesn't end up happening. Apparently, they felt like they had a deal, pretty much the framework in place, but then the open market changed things. So Gensel goes to Tampa Bay, and this is a big-time acquisition for Tampa Bay. But Roy, here's my pro-Panthers spin on it. Gensel, and I know the analytics like him, and he does some things off the puck that you don't necessarily see. I see, not talked about enough, a smaller winger that you could push to the boards and will go missing during key stretches. Didn't they just have that with Kucherov? A lot of their best guys, and now you take Stamkos out of the picture, a lot of their best guys are smaller. And that leans into some of the advantages. You saw how the Panthers drafted over at the Sphere. Nobody under 6 feet. The Panthers' identity is we're going to have big guys that can skate, that are also skilled. They're going small winger, Jake Gensel, maybe someone you could say, maybe some of those stats are empty. You got to play with some talent over there in Pittsburgh. And when Carolina needed him most, he didn't really show up. What's your immediate reaction to Jake Gensel to Tampa?
7 years, $9 million. Those are the numbers that came in.
When you hold that up against the Sam Reinhart reported details, where Sam Reinhart is a two-way player, a 50-goal scorer, scored a game-winning goal in Game 7, where Gensel might have been a little frustrating at times during that Rangers series in particular.
I mean, who else do they have? Really?
Look, there's moves to be made for Tampa Bay with that space. I think they're just going talent onslaught and try to meet the Florida Panthers' depth a little bit. But you lose Sergachev and you lose Stamkos. You replace them with a really different type of player. And Jake Gensel kind of feels like a panic move, Roy.
Yeah, and they absolutely lowballed Steven Stamkos as well. I mean, that was insulting what they did to him. I mean, 2 Stanley Cups for the Lightning for him. That's insulting, and I'm offended on his behalf despite being a Panthers fan. You don't do that to him.
Tony, do you match Roy's passion on this topic when
Absolutely.
it comes to Steven Stamkos?
Stamkos is just one of the legends of the Tampa Bay area, and you're going to give him that set. You know, you look at my man's deal, 7 years, $9 million, which is a crime, by the way. How does that math even work out?
When you start talking out of your ass, you do the Trump hands.
Of course, I have to.
You also sound like Stugotz
the
doing the good senior guard play on March Madness.
Well, let's talk about something that is a little bit more in your wheelhouse. I saw a highlight reel knockout. Now, I did not see this UFC pay-per-view, although I was excited about the main event. I was just in Universal Studios at Pat O'Brien's. I could not do it. I could not watch the UFC event. What did I miss?
Okay, so you missed, again, this was originally supposed to be Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler, a massive card in its own right, because anytime that McGregor is on a card, the entire world watches, right? He gets taken out. The co-main event also gets removed between Jamal Hill, former champion, friend of the show, and Carlos Ulberg. They're now out. Enter a new main event between Yuri Prohaska and Alex Pereira, who is the hottest star right now in the UFC. There's nobody like him. Highlight reel knockouts. What you saw at 300, where he knocked out Jamal Hill. Intimidating dude, 6'4", 230 pounds, just an absolute monster, right? So we had that main event. The co-main event falls apart 4 hours before the fight. So as everybody's en route to the fight, Brian Ortega, who was supposed to be part of the co-main event, he gets sick, 104-degree fever. He gets out. Dan Ige, another fighter, with 4 hours notice, comes in, makes weight against all odds, goes in and has an absolute banger of a fight, probably the second best fight of the night between him and Diego Lopez, another rising star of the promotion. So all in all, it was a lackluster card, But with those two fights, it really stepped up. And then what you saw between Yuri Prochazka, who's an insane person in his own right, when he found out that he was going to have the chance to avenge his light heavyweight title, he was in the Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to sit in a cabin for 3 days, no lights, no water,
3 days,
no food.
no sustenance.
Nothing.
Was the quote I
And my
read.
boy was locked in, right? The Last Samurai.
Yeah.
It was fire because the champ, he said he saw a tail in Prochazka's game during the pregame video that he had put out on Instagram. He said, "Oh, he's dropping his hands every time he blocks a kick."
Checks the kick, yep.
And then 40 minutes later, across the head, knocked out. You did me?
So
Poetin.
What's crazy, at the end of the first round, he hit him with a left hand, falling back like a fadeaway jumper, falling back left hand that knocked him out at the buzzer. He fell on his back. Looked around, was like, oh my God, got up wobbly. They sat him on the corner. First second of the second round, we see something like this. I don't know if we have B-roll or if it's audio. I'll talk through it if it's B-roll. Let's see. No, this has audio. Okay, so high head kick, like Juju said. He kind of gave him a feint like he was going to go low on a leg kick, which he had done previously in the first round. Goes high and absolutely knocks him out. They had to hold up Yuri Prochazka. Herb Dean was like holding him up. Yuri was walking around like, whoa. He didn't have his sea legs with him. But what we're looking at right now is Alex Pereira is fast-tracking himself to a UFC Hall of Fame career without a doubt. He's
fighting so much lately.
Not only is he super active as a champion, middleweight, knocking out Izzy Adesanya, commanding middleweight respect everywhere. Then he moves up a weight class and then destroys everybody in that weight class. We have another angle of the knockout that we could play here. This was, boom. Like, it is over.
Jeez.
And he broke his toe on that kick, too.
He did break his toe. But what we're looking at is one of the greatest runs. He's only had about 10 or 11 fights in the UFC, and he has more title fights than non-title fights in his UFC career. Again, he's not the global superstar of a McGregor or whatever. He doesn't speak the language. But he's incredible, and he's fast-tracking to a Hall of Fame career like sprinting.
Because of the kickboxing, there's a lot of comparisons. I think the thing that he gets compared to John Jones the most is his ability to move in weight class. John Jones, very similar. A lot of people were fantasy booking a weight class that they could both fight each other in. I don't know.
There's no way.
There's no shot, right?
There's no way. Like, when you talk about the heavyweight division, you talk about a guy like Tom Aspinall who walks around at 260 pounds. When you talk about John Jones, greatest mixed martial artist of all time, and what he did to Cyril Gane.
Yeah. What does he walk around at? What's like 250?
Yeah. Right now, probably 250, 260, somewhere in that range. But
I mean, when he first burst onto the scene, they could fight in the same weight class.
He was a light heavyweight, right?
Yeah.
He was the youngest light heavyweight title winner, UFC title winner of all time.
He's the greatest fighter of all time.
Period. But when you look at what Alex has in his game and the success that the other guys have as far as getting people to the ground and choking them out very quickly, Tom Aspinall, like guys in the heavyweight division would take care of him very quickly because of that weight discrepancy. But I think...
And you can't really count on John Jones's ability to be available, really.
He was going to be available, then tore the pec, and then now it's like up in the air. I think that the fight to make in the heavyweight division is Aspinall versus John Jones when they do get that. But I think the next move would be, and we're going to have it in kind of short order, UFC 305, Perth, Australia. We're going to have Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya for the middleweight belt. If Izzy can beat Dricus, okay, get back the middleweight belt, we have a super fight champion versus champion for everything, for all the marbles, for bad blood, redemption, finality, closure. Izzy versus Alex one last time at 205 for the light heavyweight belt. Nobody can beat Alex right now. He's on a hot streak. Izzy kind of on a downturn after losing to Sean Strickland in embarrassing fashion. If he can beat DDP and you can set up a light heavyweight fight between Alex and Izzy for everything, I think it would be one of the biggest fights we could make.
Tony, getting back to that knockout, how do you feel about Herb Dean's stoppage? Did he go in too late?
He went way too late. I think for him, he was like, I'm not going to have anybody tell me that I stopped this thing too early.
Do you think a part of it was like, damn, what a knockout. Like, it kind of froze him a little bit.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
The knockout was so great.
Like, after this 8th punch on the floor, like, Herb could have stepped in during number 4. But again, there has been some talk about Herb being a little slow.
Yeah.
He had one time where it was like, bruh, you stopped it early. And then since then, he been stopping them things late as hell, boy. He would let you die on the ring first, and then all right, it's over.
I don't know if anybody caught the draft out of the sphere. Really cool visuals. probably just scratched the surface on what they could do. And Dana took the opportunity to talk about what the NHL had done. By the way, the moment of the NHL draft was something that they kept pretty well guarded as a secret. And it was Celine Dion showing up to announce the fifth pick of the Montreal Canadiens. That was a really cool moment. And there were two moments from the weekend that I think kind of won the weekend, and that was certainly one of them, Roy.
I would say about the NHL draft is not a single team congratulated the Florida Panthers on their Stanley Cup victory, and that's I've never seen that.
So again,
Haters.
I'm coming at this from a pretty peaceful place. I'd worked through myself after the Greg Cody stuff. I thought going into that Game 7 that we were going to lose because vibes were toxic. They end up winning. So I realized Tony has a Collabo shirt. Can I tell you about what Tony tried to do to me? The shirt that Tony is holding right now. In your hand. Go ahead. Give yourself some shine. Sponsored by the
any
Haters.
Left, actually. Collab with Daly and my
Yeah, you did a collabo with Daly. We love Jonathan. We love Daly. Great guys. I got a text message from Tony saying, "Hey, limited supply. Would like to get you a shirt. $45."
Same.
This is the plug that I put him in touch with. It's my plug. And he's asking me for $45.
Just in case you wanted to buy others for somebody else, I got you on one. You know that. And I texted you as much.
You said you got me on one after I told you, quote, fuck off.
The Stugotz is strong.
Panther fans, some breaking news on the old social media front. It appears as though the Panthers, who had already been reported, they're working on an extension with Carter Verhaeghe. They have just officially announced the Sam Reinhart Sweetheart hometown discount deal. And now it appears as though they're moving to lock in Sam Bennett, who, a lot like Carter Verhaeghe, had another year on his deal, but yak now as there's championship glow, and it locks in your cap going forward. There's some cap money to play with in the coming years. Ekblad comes off the books next year. We'll see what happens there. There were rumors that he was being shopped around, but Elliot Friedman came out and said he hadn't heard that, Roy.
I'm also interested in what they're going to do with Aaron Ekblad. His contract is expiring as well, and they're also still paying one more year to Keith Yandel. That's dead cap space for him. That's the one last year of his buyout.
Yeah, well, I was actually asking you specifically about the Ekblad thing. There were reports out there he was being shopped. There's been some pushback on that by some really reputable reporters. Aaron Ekblad's at 7.5. I think he had a no-move clause that turns into a no-trade. I'm not really sure I know what the difference is. I don't think they're going to be waiving.
Well, it's the teams that he wants to go to, so he would waive that. Yeah.
And Bob also comes off your books in 2 years. But locking in a guy like Sam Bennett, a nice little identity that the Florida Panthers have kind of figured out here. It's not unlike the Dallas Mavericks back in their heyday. Take a highly touted guy that maybe didn't fulfill his promise. See if you can get him to fulfill that promise in your under your banner, or maybe turn that guy who was touted to be a superstar and turn him more into a role guy. I think that would be selling Sam Bennett short, because I think Sam Bennett had stretches during this postseason where he was among the best skaters on the ice. He was a highly touted prospect coming in. This was a guy that found his way on the fourth line in Calgary, came here, has that edge to him. And I will say, I don't want to break down any preconceived notions about Sam Bennett, because I think Paul Maurice already did that by saying, I saw him smile for the first time in 2 years after winning Game 7. I got a hug from Sam Bennett at 11, and it was one of the more shocking experiences of my life, because that dude does not give that off. But he was standing on top of speakers saying, you know why he gave me a hug?
Why?
Because Aaron Ekblad turned his ankle stepping down from the section that we were at with
that
Izzy.
Man has so many foot problems.
He didn't see a step. It's a tricky step. And I grabbed him by the armpit and I pulled him back. I might have saved his NHL career. He gave me a hug after I did that. And I think Sam Bennett, recognizing what had happened there in a moment of clarity, turned to me and either is a huge fan of the show, which I doubt, or wanted to just genuinely thank me for making sure that Aaron Ekblad didn't get hurt, gave me a hug, and is one of the more outside. You're in that class, Roy. Dudes that will give me an embrace that'll stun me a little bit because I did not know that they were capable. This must be a special moment. Sam Bennett is in that Roy class.
Yes.
Are we bringing back Kevin Stenlund?
I think so. I think they need him for the penalty kill.
Yeah.
You think so? Because I kind of.
Of course we are. It would be really a crime important to have him not come back.
Number one, I don't know if you saw that photo of Kevin Stenlund floating in the pool with Lord Stanley. He looks like Thor. He is a handsome devil, and he proved himself to be a huge part of this team's penalty kill. He's one of the best penalty killers at that position, at the top of that blue line, killing a penalty in the entire league. It just so happens he's on penalty kill unit 2 because he's got Barkov ahead of him there. But I would really love to bring Kevin Stenlund back. He had the moment without the stick, giving it his all, trying to punch at the puck. Monster number 2 needs to be back down here.
The biggest penalty kill in franchise history.
There were a couple against the Edmonton Oilers where the puck was in their zone for 2 minutes, and they had key guys on their penalty kill in the box, and they had to find a way to get a stop. The overwhelming thing, and I promise you, this is the end of our Panther coverage unless there's breaking news. I promise you. The overwhelming thing that washed over me watching the parade from home, outside of me understanding that the local news at some point just had to give up on the dump button altogether.
So many fines.
And PLG just decided they're just going to put up a graphic warning folks that there was going to be some saucy language over there. I was watching that, and I was like, I seeing all these guys having the time of their life. Aaron Ekblad with the cone on his head, getting to have that moment over Brooks Koepka. They almost blew this.
Yeah.
They almost threw all of this away with the most historic collapse in a final in team sports history, in modern era. Because I was telling Dan, the gulf between the spectrum ran headed into that Game 7. Your crowning achievement as a professional, your first Stanley Cup in franchise history, what you might be associated, for better or worse, what you might be associated with for the rest of your career. When they introduce Aaron Ekblad at functions decades from now, he's going to be Stanley Cup winner Aaron Ekblad. That was what was on one side of the spectrum. What was on the other side was biggest choker in the history of team sports. You're not going to be able to avoid this. They're going to throw your graphic up there when they're talking about Major League Baseball playoffs and teams blowing leads. Your graphic, your brand is going to be synonymous with choking.
Speaking of throwing graphics up, not to intrude on this wonderful, but you guys was about to do a billboard in Edmonton and couldn't get it done. Jason Tatum put a billboard out here on Miami Beach and said, "Don't stop disbelieving." Neither here nor there, but he got his billboard up.
Right. So I think that was Jordan that did that.
It was Jason Tatum on the picture.
It was Jason Tatum doing it. So I don't think Jason Tatum was calling like Clear Channel.
I'm pretty sure you can make jokes, but a Jason Tatum billboard was in Miami, and he got that done. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, Jordan.
It just doesn't make sense to make fun of people's celebrations. Like, you know what I mean? I want to bring it full circle because we had a lot to say about the celebration, and people around the world have a lot to say about Miami's celebration. And I think that it's all goofy. Like, I don't give a damn if it's one. I wish one person would have came to the Panthers parade yesterday so we can be just as happy because it doesn't matter. You're a loser if you're at the house and you care about our parade.
Getting back to our celebration, you mentioned FCC fines and all the F-bombs. Well, we have Paul Maurice. We have the video of that, and that was spectacular.
I need his T-shirt here in this clip.
Years. For every one of you, 30 years. For that woman over there, 30 years of being married to an Fuck him! In my wildest dreams, I've never would have thought I could see this. Seriously, understand this. Everybody that we love in this world is happy right now.
My head coach was lit.
That line was awesome.
That's the most Canadian he's ever looked, wearing those shorts with that hat, walking around Fort Lauderdale Beach with a drink in his hand. He looked extra Canadian there. But I do think that Juju opened up the path to actually getting these billboards there. Have CCM or Raising Cane's or somebody sponsor the board for Matthew Tkachuk and have them say Greg Cody was right, because they absolutely got in through the back door with that Tatum billboard by just saying, yeah, Jordan wants some ad space over here.
Talk to me, Juju. I know some billboard people.
Hey,
we can make some stuff happen.
Exactly. I just want to stop shaming it.
No, ain't no shame. We're going to make it happen. We're going to make it happen because I got the plug. Wait, hold on. Are we doing Tatum or are we doing Greg Cody billboards? Which one?
We've been doing hockey
for
about
Juju
3
mentioned
hours.
that Tatum got a billboard down here.
Yeah.
I pointed out that he got a billboard down here not because Jason Tatum was doing what Dan was doing, which was calling around mom and pop shops, but because Jordan has a marketing budget and the plugs already. So we need to find a similar way.
Like DraftKings.
I'm telling you right now, I have the plug. I have the billboard plug. We'll make it happen.
Yeah.
All you guys do is ask. All you got to do is ask. See, the problem with
can we ask for Dan? I personally never want to see those billboards go up. I think it's a bad
Cody
look.
Billboards?
I think it's a bad look for us. So like if the show wants to do it now that the job is done, go for it. Florida Panthers, as we've covered throughout this entire local hour so far, they've got a lot working against them. Don't need other people having that ammunition. But if you want to go nuts with the billboards now that you've won,
wait, what are you
do
saying?
it.
What are you saying?
I just think it doesn't.
Why is it a bad
give
look?
off
Hold on.
class?
It's too cool for us, guys.
We're the classy outfit now. That's what we do here.
I think that we weren't
the
on a float.
Goalpost moves every week with this company. It's like, can I be emotional? Can I be mean? Can I be happy? Can I stand here? What are we doing?
I'm always me.
Lithium. That's what we're doing. We're all doing lithium.
All right. So how does the show get a billboard?
How does you talk to me?
I'm talking to you.
Okay.
I'm asking
I don't have to reveal how the sausage gets made. Just all you got to know is the sausage is on the plate, and that's it.
Nice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you get delayed in your travels?
Yeah.
What happened?
Flew out from SFO, and there were mechanical issues, so we were on the tarmac for a while.
It's going around.
Did they use a YouTube video to fix it? Because Tony and I's flight to Austin for South by Southwest, we were in the Turkish lounge watching some guy watch a YouTube video. While
he went from like vertical to like he went to the side so
no.
you could really see like what it was, so that way he can like get it in.
No way.
Yeah, I promise
swear
you.
to God.
He was right underneath the engine. He had it like kind of like up like this. He had it like this, and he was trying to turn it for a while, and then he finally turned it. He was like, oh, and then he started screwing the right one in.
That's when you got to do the Grandpa Abe Simpson and just walk back out.
Tony just started wolfing down free brownies. We were like, this is going to end poorly. But we
Excellent
made
brownies.
What kind of brownies?
Free ones.
Sam Bennett, Roy. Sam Bennett, bro. Back to what you was saying.
Yeah, him on the second line with Kachuk on his wing. Man, top 6 forwards for the Panthers. It's best in the league, man. I'm very happy that they're going to try to re-sign him here.
Wait, Roy wasn't on a float?
Nobody was on the float. No medium was on the float.
No, because of the shenanigans that the show pulled over the last few months. The checks came back. It did not clear because of our general approach to hockey. Big NBA transaction. Jeremy, what can you tell us about it?
Isaiah Hartenstein has signed with the Oklahoma City Thunder on a 3-year, $87 million contract.
There it is, Knicks fans. Man, he likes it here. No, he's friends with the guys here. No, some things are more important than money.
That shirt just went to waste, Sam Morrill. That shirt does not matter no more. Salute, my bad, Jess.
How much did the second apron play into this, Amin?
Oh, enough.
The second apron.
Tell us about the aprons.
There's only one apron that matters. The one that he's wiping his money-hungry hands on. Like, oh, yeah, I got all this dirt from all these millions I've been counting. Look, ladies and gentlemen.
Barbecue?
Yeah, it's saucy. It's saucy millions.
It's Oklahoma.
The most the Knicks could offer, apron or not, 4 years, $72 million. The most. Nick Claxton got $100 million. At that point, I said, kiss it goodbye.
Yeah.
There's no way he looks across the river, sees a guy that he says, well, I'm better than him, I play on a better team, and he's going to get 25 a year, and I'm going to take 16. No chance in hell. And I had to hear all this stuff about, he likes the guys, and he enjoys playing with them, and you can't put a price on friendship. I'm like, yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Who was that right there? Who just imitated?
Taylor.
That's Taylor.
Oh, nice, nice.
Taylor. Sorry, you are the Knick fan of our lives, so that's how we're gonna do it. No, man, that's like this. Every year we go through this. Every year in the NBA, there's a free agent on a team, and it's like, hey, the most they can offer him is this, but his market value is gonna be somewhere around here. And there are these people who delude themselves into thinking, no,
he likes us.
They like, you can't put a price on. Yes, you can. His whole life is about maximizing how much money he can make in a very small window of time.
Well, occasionally, someone like maybe Sam Reinhart in another sport will take the friendly team deal.
Gustav Forsling did do that, and I think you take the team-friendly deals when you're close to winning a championship, and maybe, just maybe, inside of league circles, they don't think the Knicks are as close to a title as Knicks fans feel.
I just want to point out, I like how we're on this plane, and the plane is, there's all sorts of alarms, and we're about to crash, and I grabbed the steering wheel. I said, come on. I'll take you to salvation. And we fly towards NBA free agency. And just like, no, hockey again.
Oh, come on, man. That's not fair.
Here.
I do want to address.
It's our last day.
It's not fair, Roy. It's been 8 years of hockey in the last 2 weeks.
Jesus Christ. I mean, it's free agency time, man. Come on.
I know for the NBA.
But for
New
the
York,
NHL.
New York isn't exactly a tax-free state. There's been this huge notion from a lot of NHL fans. Tampa got hit with this a lot when they were winning. Is that, well, you got to do something about these state tax teams. They have an unfair advantage.
That's what Maple Leaf fans are saying.
They have an unfair advantage, and I will say it's a different story altogether for the Canadian teams than it is for those in the United States. But someone should do something about this.
No.
To which I say they do. All right, Sam Reinhart's home that he's going to fetch for $8 million down here in South Florida would look a hell of a lot different than if it were in Columbus, Ohio. Like there's a whole cost of living aspect here,
including it being underwater.
Yeah, there's give me the cost of living in Columbus, Ohio. If you want to complain about the state tax here, let me buy a house for the value that I would get it at Columbus, Ohio, if you have an issue with the state tax thing. Cost of living does factor into these things. And also, it's not like he's not going to be getting state taxes when they play in the New York area.
That's the other part. Right?
It's just for 50% of their games.
It's an inherent incompetence about how any of this shit works. It's just like, oh, but they got no state income taxes. Okay, first of all, they still got federal taxes, which is the majority of your tax you're paying. But plus, any road game you play, most of these states now have enacted the jock tax.
Yeah.
Which is anytime these performers, singers, comedians, and athletes come to your state, they're getting taxed there. And so 41 road games, guess what happens on the salary earned in those games?
That being said, if there's an NHL lifer that just gets moved to one of the two Florida teams and they have a home stretch for about 10 days, they look at their check and they're like, did someone make a mistake? Because so much money usually gets taken out of those things.
It's probably, you know what's interesting? I wonder what happens if, like, I never play a road game. Right? Like if some old long in the
or Kyrie, where he never had to play a home game in Brooklyn. But he could play
right, like this,
on the road trips.
I'd love to talk to an accountant. If you're an accountant, call us on the show.
Yeah, I do want to talk about the Oklahoma City aspect to this move because I really
talk about the aprons. Will someone please just tell me about the aprons? I mean,
what is the tax apron?
I don't feel comfortable about Jess asking about aprons.
I think she wants to put people in that position.
Oh.
The only apron that she should be talking about is the one she wears when she makes me a sandwich.
She wears an apron to make a sandwich?
I like what the Thunder are doing.
Good sandwiches.
Adding Caruso especially. This is a team that needed some of those veterans to help do some of those dirtier things that can help you win a title. Those are good glue guys. Those are good role players. I really like Oklahoma City after these moves.
You know what they did? They're baking the cake at 400 degrees. I love it. I use this analogy every year, right? Particularly with the young teams, right? If the instructions say bake the cake 400 degrees for 20 minutes. A lot of times organizations, after a little bit of success, are like, crank it to 800 and it'll be done in 10. And that's how they mess everything up. And the Thunder are like, no, let it bake.
Are the Knicks cranking it up to 800?
Man, 6 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges is cranking it up.
I kind of feel that way too.
It was a combination of two different analogies. One is they cranked it up to 800 degrees. Two is they're doing the dice thing too much. They're going into that. Oh, Villanova, that works. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, give me Villanova.
It works with these role player guys. What if we have a team all of role players from Villanova?
Villanova, Omari Spellman, Villanova. Wait, what about Sadiq Bey?
Arcadiacino.
Yeah.
Sadiq Bey, somewhere like he's like, I don't know.
Boys,
I
what
got
up?
bars.
Where we at?
Do I have bars? I don't know, man. Man, what's the Wi-Fi again? Oh, they haven't hit me up yet.
5G?
Well, with the Knicks now, I mean, so it's 3 years, $87 million for Hardenstein to go to Oklahoma City. With the Knicks, you now look at their trade, and by having to lose Hardenstein, it's sort of like they included him in that deal. So you look at Isaiah Hardenstein, Bojan Bogdanovic, 5 first-round picks and a 2nd-round pick for Mikal Bridges. I think that the Knicks got better in terms of acquiring Bridges. I praised the trade last week. But did they get significantly better with this move?
It's a little intellectually.
You also had to bring back OG.
It's a little intellectually disingenuous because it doesn't matter whether they do the deal or not. Early bird rights for Hartenstein. They can only offer him a deal.
So was it going to happen regardless?
It was like the only way it was going to happen was if the kindness of his dumb old heart.
Perfect.
Like I would, but I love it here, and that's what they were banking their whole thing in. Or this would be a more radical approach if they had renounced a bunch of stuff and gone under the cap and then used cap space to sign him.
I guess the question still
You could have also
applies
done
on-
like a really short-term year, right?
Yeah, sure.
But no NBA agent would say that's a good idea.
But even if he did a 1-year deal to get to full bird rights next year, it would be a 1-year deal for $16 million versus 3 years, 87, with a team that looks like they're going to be running the sport
Yeah, they're gonna
for
be
the
in
next 5 years.
So
gonna be
maybe
in that
intellectually
conversation,
dishonest to make it all sort of like one move.
Yeah.
But the question, I guess, still remains of how much better did the Knicks get considering what
They
the
lost-
transactions are?
They lost Hartenstein and now Mitchell Robinson, who was their original starter, but has had an injury history throughout his career. That's now you're hanging all your hopes on that. So you've got to figure out what you're going to do to get a 5. Now, the part where the deal does come into play is how much they can offer Precious Achiuwa because of the hard cap enacted by the apron if they're taking in more money than they give out. So they've got to rework that deal, which means they might lose Deuce McBride. These are all the kind of things that in the margins people don't want to hear about. They're kind of boring, but like these are the counting things that will end up being, well, why do we have to let him go? Because this, and this.
Let's bring in Jake Fisher from Yahoo Sports, who does a great job covering the NBA, who you know a little bit, to talk about some of these recent moves. And our show can finally chew on this Paul George thing that happened overnight. Paul George to the Sixers. I already saw the who can stop these guys graphic, and I was looking at the knees in particular. I was maybe circle the knees.
Circle of the Olympics 2024, Joel Embiid. What are you doing?
So Paul George now joins Maxey, who I think got a max deal. Is that a part of the?
He got a maxi deal.
He got a maxi
4
deal.
for 204.
Look, I mean, Philadelphia added to a team that, again, health is always going to be the question there. But I think it's a good fit for Paul George. I'm curious to know Jake's thoughts here. So let's start right there, Jake, and welcome aboard the show. Let's start with the headliner move so far of this offseason. Paul George to Philadelphia. Your immediate thoughts?
This was kind of the Sixers' plan for 2024 free agency, starting as early as 2023 free agency when James Harden opted in and requested a trade. The Sixers made this plan. This is Daryl Morey's like master pipe dream of trying to trade him and only taking back 1-year contracts to then get into, the open market this summer and be the only winning team with max cap space. And they did it. Like, Daryl Morey did it again. As much as people want to talk, crap on him and make fun of his calculators and his spreadsheets, like, this was the vision and this was their guy all along, and they got him. It's like kind of been like a 300-day approach for this guy.
Was this vengeance?
A little bit. I mean, look, the other aspect of this, James Harden gets traded to the Clippers. The Sixers get back Clippers picks, and then they made the Clippers monumentally worse by bringing back Paul George. It's crazy.
So you touched on some of the reasons why this may be, but the Clippers put out like a weird statement.
Yes, they
I
did.
guess acknowledging Paul George's time there, and it really just felt like that's what it was, an acknowledgement that he existed in their uniform, and largely failed. There was a lot of gamesmanship that played out in the media. It was just like, 10 days ago, where I think Woj reported that the Sixers were cooling on the idea of bringing Paul George aboard. So what do you make of how this played out and the Clippers' reaction to it?
The Clippers statement and what Lawrence Frank had already said publicly about this, about the CBA, it can sound like an excuse, but I do think it's a reason. And what it is that it's not just that this new second apron brings, tax penalties, because Steve Ballmer could pay out the wazoo to front any team. The issues are the cap now, the rules with it hamstring a team and limit you from getting better. And what happens is if you pay into the second apron for 3 out of 5 years, which is exactly what would have happened if the Clippers brought back all of Kawhi, James Harden, and Paul George on the 3-year contracts. They would have had a pick frozen in the future and stuck in the back of the first round. They wouldn't have been able to aggregate salaries to get better. They wouldn't have had trade exceptions, and they couldn't have signed and traded and what have you. And the Clippers were afraid of paying for this team to compete in the West for 3 years and then be stuck for the next 4 from 2027 to 2032 in this brand new stadium with no means to get better and an absolute, shit team. So that was kind of their fear here. They were saving themselves now from a potential doomsday future. And the cost is definitely Paul George. If they gave him a 4-year deal remotely close to this, I think he would have stayed in LA.
Sticking with the Clippers, Jake, you were one of the first people to report that Russell Westbrook will be worked into a trade somewhere. Typically, when you see a guy opt into a deal and then immediately traded, it was probably a conversation that was made between the agent, the player, and the team, kind of an agreement. Why would Russell Westbrook do that? Why wouldn't he just test free agency?
To your point, there's definitely, I think, a collaborative process there with the agency XL Sports and the Clippers trying to find him a new home. The only read I have on it right now is that he wasn't necessarily certain that Russell Westbrook was going to get more than the minimum. And the minimum this year for him is 3.6. So that's a cool $400K that he made sure he got. And it's a thing all around the league right now. Chris Paul signing with San Antonio. He avoids a situation like he would have had to in Phoenix or LA, where he would have been on the minimum. And that's a cold, hard reality for a lot of veterans once they do decline. Once you get on a minimum contract, it's really, really hard to get above it. And that $400,000 gap, that's not nothing for these guys, even though they've made $100 million throughout their career, $200 million throughout their career. So I think there was some appropriate fear, I guess, or skepticism on their side that he was going to actually have opportunities above that minimum number.
One of the big names that's going to be on the move, we just don't know where, is Klay Thompson. The Warriors haven't put out a weird statement, but they've kind of we've gotten the flags that his time
There's
is
some
done.
traction out there for Dallas. And that is like such a Dallas Mavericks pickup. Is so their identity. Let's turn a superstar into a role player type of guy, and he could really help.
He could help, and they have that Tim Hardaway traded player exception that they can, if they can work something out, they can get him in. Jake, what are the odds that he's wearing a Dallas Mavericks uniform at the start of next season?
I really do think right now it's between Dallas and the Lakers, where they both can kind of basically give him the same type of salary structure, somewhere around the mid-level exception. So it's just a matter of figuring out which scenario. I mean, the Lakers, I think, is more direct. They wouldn't need any type of sign and trade, I don't believe, and Dallas has options to do that. But I've been told by the cap nerds I know that Dallas can clear a way to just get their full mid-level as well and bring him in without that complication. But, Philly's been looming on the periphery here too. They've got Paul Reed's contract that is $8 million and non-guaranteed. They could waive him. They could use him in a sign and trade too. So I'm not totally discounting the Sixers either, but overnight and, so far early this morning, the word has definitely been that he's deciding between Dallas and the Lakers. And I think objectively, Dallas is clearly more positioned to help Klay Thompson compete for his 5th championship. So I think if winning ultimately rules the day, it's going to be Dallas. It's going to be you go.
How did Orlando fall out of this? Is it just because they went and got KCP? Because I'm looking at their roster.
It's a nice move for them.
That is a nice move, but I'm thinking like, Jonathan Isaac sign and trade doesn't get Klay Thompson done to Orlando.
Yeah. And Orlando was also sniffing around this Paul George thing as well. They were in play there. What do we make of Orlando?
So Orlando, I honestly don't believe is ever really a Klay Thompson team. I think they definitely wanted a guard. They gave that money to KCP. They were absolutely looking at Malik Monk, but Klay, approaching 35, doesn't exactly fit the timeline as well as KCP, even though KCP I think is 32, so he's not, a spring chicken like Franz and Paolo, but he, I think, fits more so from like a long-term and not a wheels falling off trajectory that Klay has kind of shown of late. So I mean, honestly, it was probably sometime last week. I checked in with someone from Golden State and I said, hey, I think this KCP Orlando thing is real. I don't think Klay has a home. And they said, yeah, we've been trying to tell people all along this Magic thing isn't legit. It just kind of leveraged that his side was trying to create. So, and honestly, I haven't said this publicly yet. I don't really think Paul George was really so real for Orlando too. That might have been some type of quid pro quo. Orlando gets a meeting, quote unquote, and it helps Orlando look good. And it helps Paul have some type of leverage as well. It's not just Philly. Like, I haven't gotten it confirmed at this juncture that Orlando even met with Paul George and that there even was a meeting scheduled, that there was just some kind of loose interest that could have happened and benefited both sides there.
Jake, buddy, we started this off wrong. Your energy is all low. How you doing, man? I know this is the worst time of the year because it's like you don't get to sleep. Yeah, you're by your phone all the time. Tell me about your personal life during free agency.
So last night I actually got like my first night's sleep of more than 5 hours in probably 2 weeks.
Same.
Because the draft, that's another thing too. Like everyone was kind of saying yesterday on Twitter, oh, the new CBA cooled the early rush out the gates. No, the fact that the draft ended Thursday and free agency ended Sunday, as opposed to like usually there's a week for all these deals to, illegally get figured out. So we didn't have that run up here. And it's been good. We got a new foster rescue that we foster failed, Arugula. She's in the house. So that's been nice.
Arugula?
Arugula. We call her Rugi. So everything's been good over here.
I love it.
Hold on. Can you give a foster a nickname? Because now it's all confused when it goes to its actual home.
No, we failed. We adopted her. She's ours now. Okay. She's my daughter. I'm a dad.
Oh, okay. All right.
Arugula.
Congratulations.
Green type of person, but that's a cute name.
Yeah.
Spinach.
Roogie.
Honestly, in a class with kale. Overrated.
Huh.
More aesthetically pleasing than tasty.
It's peppery though.
The rooster.
Jake, I do want to ask you, we know that Philadelphia is remaining aggressive, and I really wish that the Miami Heat would take a lesson from that recent aggression that Philadelphia's had. They are very quiet right now. They are bringing back Kevin Love. Again, same scenario playing out here for the Miami Heat. The rest of the East is getting better. Tobias Harris, by the way, goes to Detroit. That just broke.
Ew.
Yeah, I think, what is he pulling?
2 for
What is
52.
Detroit doing,
2
man?
for 52.
Dude is printing money. Printing money.
I mean,
Tobias
that
Harris.
is that is Detroit signing a piece that they will trade next year, because in the
100%.
NBA, bad contracts have this bizarro value. So they're just a way station right now. But Houston, along with the Miami Heat, are these teams that we heard could be players this summer, have the capital to get something done. Right now, we're just seeing the names that we know about. Is there any chance that some superstars that we don't necessarily know are available on the market can find themselves to the Houstons, to the Miamis of the world.
So quick note on Tobias. This is also a sneaky way for the Pistons to spend a lot of the cap that they have to spend to reach 90% of the salary floor.
I don't think it's sneaky. That has to be what's going on here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Washington did it too. Like Jonas Valanciunas, starting center for the worst place Washington
I thought
Wizards.
I was getting pranked when I saw the Jonas Valanciunas
Hold on.
thing.
Before we move on to answer Mike's question, I had to say, because you brought up Valanciunas.
Yeah.
He was the best center on the market between him and Hartenstein.
No, Isaiah was. Hartenstein was, man. How dare you?
If I'm Jonas Valanciunas, I'm looking at my resume and I'm looking at his resume and say, I have more to show that I can do this.
But Jonas's arrow is not pointing up the way that Isaiah's is.
Sure, but like also, I am what I am right now.
Yeah.
If there's a part where we're saying, hey, who are you sure can replicate what he did this last season? It's the guy who's done it 3 or 4 or 5 years, not the guy who did it for half a season. Why did he take less than mid-level?
I don't know. Has there been someone who's gotten the full mid-level yet? I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're past. I mean, if that happens, if it did happen, I apologize. But every team I spoke to before free agency repeatedly said, oh yeah, if we can get this guy at 9-10 and still leave like, 3-4 million left to use as a traded player exception or to sign somebody else. We're in this new era now where the mid-level is so high that I don't think any team I spoke to had any plans of using that full amount.
But 10 seems criminally low when you look at the other centers on the market, what they've gotten.
If he didn't get that, honestly, I think he was looking at the minimum in certain scenarios.
Yeah. Given where he is in his career. But back to the original question, Miami,
The original
Houston.
question, Miami, Houston.
Miami, Houston. Are these franchises actually going to do something with the trade capital that they've been reserving?
The problem that Houston saw at number 3 and that Portland saw the year before at number 3 and that, Cleveland has seen in past years and Golden State when they had 7 and 14, there just aren't a lot of players right now that are available that are, on a bad team. Like Lauri Markkanen is probably the one guy that I think has actual possibility to get traded. But if you want him, the Jazz are going to look at what Mikal Bridges just got. They're going to look at what they got for Donovan Mitchell and when they got for Rudy Gobert, and they're going to say, give us 5-6 unprotected picks. And I don't know if that's necessarily going to be something a team wants to do unless they really figure out and believe that Lauri Markkanen is the missing piece. I've heard Golden State and San Antonio and Sacramento as the teams that have most checked on him. But at this point, I think it's still a little touch too early to have. I mean, the Jazz can still renegotiate and extend Lauri Markkanen that begins as early as August 6th. And every indication I've had is that they're trying to do that and add to him right now. But that's the guy.
So
that's the only guy I think. Donovan Mitchell's going back to Cleveland. Jeremy Grant. Jeremy Grant's not worth that type of stuff. Why hasn't
the Mitchell thing happened yet? Because a lot of Heat fans are holding out hope. I know your point is a good one. That there aren't really superstar malcontents on bad teams right now. I would say there are a couple of bad teams that don't necessarily realize they're bad, but they're in unique situations. Tell Ishbia that they're not going to be competitive. It's hard to reason with them right now. So conventional wisdom would say sit back and wait for some of these teams to do bad. However, if Miami goes another offseason with letting the rest of the Eastern Conference lap them, and even in their own division getting worse inside of that, I don't know if this fan base, which has been pretty patient with Pat, I'll take that back, hasn't been very patient. But now that the Celtics finally won their title, you're in chase mode. How logical is it that the Miami Heat are going to practice patience here? Because that would go over like a lead balloon.
Yeah, and they might lose both Haywood Highsmith and Caleb Martin, depending on how things go. The biggest thing about the Tobias Harris news that broke while we've been on here, excuse me, my first thought was, okay, well, that was a big Caleb Martin possibility. Excuse me. So, does he go back? I mean, the word has been he's been looking for that type of money, a 2-year, $20 million a year AAV type of thing. Haywood Highsmith's looking for the full mid-level, which we talked about earlier, not necessarily so available out there. So the opportunity cost for them to, find a richer thing somewhere else, I'm not sure that's going to be worth those guys not going back to Miami. But if they do, Like, is that enough too? Like, are you, to your point, Mike, are you like, parading down to the Casillas Center because you brought back Haywood Highsmith and Caleb Martin? I don't think those moves compare to what the top of the East has done. I think you're right. Like, it's going to be a matter of swallowing a patience pill and hoping that Phoenix blows up, hoping that, other situations become awry. I think that's it right now.
The good news is Miami is no stranger to swallowing pills.
Yes. Jake, we thank you for your time. Real quick, 5 seconds or less. What happens with LeBron?
He takes a pay cut depending on the caliber of guy. If they get Clay, he'll take less. But I don't think anyone if they get Brooke, maybe. But
Haywood Highsmith.
He's going back to the Lakers. Yeah.
You taking a pay cut for Haywood Highsmith?
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting to the point where I'm going to start overreacting to Haywood Highsmith leaving.
Oh my God!
If Miami keeps getting their lunch taken. Thank you so much, Jake. Check this stuff out for Yahoo Sports senior NBA reporter.
So one of the things I didn't get to ask Jake Fisher because we ran out of time with him is who overpaid more? Was it the Knicks for Mikal Bridges, 5 first-round picks and a pick swap? Or was it the Blazers for Denny effing Avdia? 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and Malcolm Brogdon, who I think is going to have value on the trade market. And it got me thinking, what's the most you overpaid for any item? And you're like, you knew, man, like this is too much.
Game 5 of the Stanley Cup final.
How much?
But thankfully, I knew that in the secondary market, even though that was a pretty penny, it was going to be the best deal around because of Game Time's price match guarantee. Yeah, the Game Time app, it's the best place in the secondary market. It's what I use all the time. And if you're listening to my voice and you realize it's summer concert season, now the finals are over and I can finally go about working on these vacations with the family, do what I do. I'm going to Chicago this weekend. I'm certainly going to set the Game Time geotag to Chicago to see what's going around the town.
I had mine on, and it was telling me about things that were happening in the Bay Area.
Yeah, and if you see the specific venues, you can click those seats, see what your panoramic view would be from those seats.
I love that.
Use the code DAN when you create a brand new account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guarantee. The guarantee is a big part of this because if for whatever reason you do find a better price out there, Game Time will match 100% 110%.
Wait, that's more than 100%.
That is more. That is what I give every
Can
show.
they do that?
110%. They guarantee it, my man. And if you ever need to actually test this theory, their customer service, in my experience, has been pretty spectacular. So use that promo code DAN with your first purchase. Get $20 back. Game Time, my personal favorite secondary market ticket place.
I use Game Time to take Claire to a stage play this weekend. It was Bluey's Big Play.
Oh,
Nice.
Yeah, that was a really nice show. It was really fun.
Have a moment.
Yeah.
Disney better do whatever it can. They have a licensing deal right now. They better purchase that property. That is a red hot property right there.
Yeah, get some rides at the theme park too. Let's go.
Oh, I need that.
How about that?
Game 4 of the NBA Finals, I mean. Metal Rock
In
didn't
Dallas?
get behind that one. Yeah, they didn't get behind that one. That was me all the way, and wow, I should have stayed my ass home for that one.
Oh, because that was the night we thought it was going to end. And
Yes,
instead it was
right.
a demolishment that you had to watch from the Comerica banks.
Literally Cloud 9.
I should have taken a picture. I saw Juju. Our seats were legit. It's us and then the ceiling.
And Sting.
That
you
was it.
look to your right, and Sting was there in his crow get up. And he asked you first time?
Anyone else? Because I'll give you what mine was. The worst overpaid by percentage for sure. A bottle of Coca-Cola at the top of the Empire State Building. Holy shit. You want to talk about a captive market. They're like,
Ooh,
yeah.
can we prices right this? $8.
$12.
$6.
$1.
What year was
99
this?
cents.
What year was this?
This was,
Bottle or can?
it was a bottle.
Ooh, all right. Was it Mexican?
Nope. Regular
What year?
plastic 20-ounce
Oh,
bottle.
in a plastic bottle.
It was 2012, 2013.
I would say
Went too high.
$5.50.
$13.25.
Who had 9? Did anyone have 9?
I said 8.
Just wins.
Whoa.
$9.
2012?
$9. Dude, like
For an American Coca-Cola
That means
Classic?
it's $60 now.
you're like, here's the thing. You have to pay at the bottom before you get to the top.
Appreciate
That's
that.
number one. So they know you sound like you could leave and go get another one somewhere else. Number two, 99% of the people coming here are tourists, many of whom are tourists from another country, many of them who are tourists from another country with a stronger economy than ours, or stronger currency than ours. So it's like $9 in my 1,600 perchechos. This is amazing. This is a great deal. You know, this is a made-up currency that just had a perchecho.
I mean,
Did
I got
your
a
ears
question.
pop?
Sorry about that. I have a question. I have a serious change of gears question. And I don't want to put you in this position, and you don't have to answer because you run in the NBA circles.
Okay.
Jonte Porter is suspended for his life. Mm-hmm. Miles Bridges and Kevin Porter Jr. have jobs.
Yep.
I take it personal, the domestic violence, more than, I mean, the gambling, I
Right.
get it. But how are these brothers allowed to be back in the NBA and the gamblers not?
I will answer that question. First of all, the Porter Jr. situation, after the initial reporting, like there's a lot of stuff there that is just a little unclear. It's not like Miles Bridges where it was very straightforward. But I'm going to give a very straightforward business answer that I know a lot of people are going to, this does not represent my hierarchy of what's worse in life. But when you talk about sports, you can literally do anything. The one thing you cannot do is give people the impression that what we're watching is not real. Right? Like you can murder and and all these things. And we can find a way of saying, wow, what an awful person, but man, what a jump shot. What we cannot do is say, did he throw that one? Yeah. Is he on the level or not?
Unless, of course, it's an official in the 2006 NBA Finals, and then we just move along.
Well, I mean, like they got his ass up out of here.
Yeah, but the questions still remain about all that
And
stuff. But I would say,
it was the
like,
conference finals. It wasn't the finals because he never did a finals game, even though the NBA said he was one of our best referees or whatever. But like, I'm gonna tell you, that's why all this season we've had guys either implicitly or explicitly declare these guys are on the take, right? Jamal Murray throwing the heat pack and then saying, and doing the money sign. You had Coach Darko of the Raptors saying if they just wanted the Lakers to win, they should have just let us know. We would have stayed at home. Yeah, Rudy Gobert doing oh yes, we know the gambling is happening. You cannot do that. I was like, that's my number one thing I said to Adam Silver and Joe Dumars. You got to crack down on that because we cannot have people say what we're watching on TV isn't real. That doesn't mean it's a worse thing in life to do, Juju, than putting your hands on a woman, obviously.
One has criminal charges associated with it,
Yep.
where the other one's being policed by the league itself. But if the game itself loses its integrity,
Right.
it's a big stain. That's not to say that the other things aren't a big stain, but the other things are manageable from a game integrity standpoint.
I'm more surprised that Porter Jr., his first deal, wasn't like, hey, minimum, come back in, kind of make everyone feel, hey, I'm a changed man. Like, it was just like, here's a lot of money, bro. Which to me, that's always thing when I look at guys that mess up. And again, I want to acknowledge that there's some stuff in that story that is unclear. But when guys mess up, there has to be the feeling of basketball mortality, meaning, oh, this shit that I thought was going to be here forever and I'm going to make all this money, whatever, it can be taken away from me like that. And so when you get it back, it has to be like, oh, thank God. I'll take this minimum. I'll do whatever it takes. When you walk back in the door and it's like, here's $20 million or whatever, it's like, all right, man, like, I knew they messed me up. Like, you know how I was always good for this? You know, like, there's a part of it where I don't know if there's a lesson that gets learned, because regardless of whether he did everything that he was accused of or not, he put himself in a position. And I don't know if you learn from those experiences if at the end of it, here's a big bag of money.
I also think that this stuff in this country is still relatively new in terms of it being legalized in a lot of these states. Whereas if you try to hold up examples in tennis, although they're pretty strict over there, or in the Premier League over in England, where they've had legalized regulated sports betting for decades on end, and you have a player like Paquetá, who's a really good Brazilian piece for West Ham. He's got a gambling thing around him. It's actually a pretty funny scandal in that there's questions to whether or not he bet on himself to get a yellow card. And so you wonder how much that affects the game.
That's lit, man.
Yeah. But this stuff is surrounding him, and he's still playing. I do think the more this stuff is in the public space, the more it gets regulated, the more the punishments will ease up down the line. But I think as these things start in this country, you have to be very strong because you don't have the several decades leg up that the other European countries do. But I get it. Jeremy, I want to talk to you about the Miami Heat right now because I'm in a couple of group chats and there's a lot of folks sweating.
I believe young Tasha had a point that he wanted to piggyback.
Real quick, just on the domestic abuse side of things, like, don't we think that if the league treated it stronger, that players in turn and fans would react stronger to this, that maybe players would avoid putting themselves, quote unquote, in this position rather than because
you're suggesting that the league has more power than, say, like the actual authorities.
Yeah. I am, because that's ultimately what ends up happening here. The authorities have no power and don't make arrests a lot of the time or convictions when it comes to domestic abuse. And these guys, a guy like Kevin Porter Jr. getting all of that money, the league has the power to make that not
You're
happen.
saying it can help in addition to,
yeah,
as opposed
absolutely.
to the specter of being thrown in jail.
Yeah.
I would say two things. One is these things are collectively bargained. You can't just say, hey, man, I don't like what you were accused of doing. I'm gonna take matters in my own hands. You can't do that unilaterally, number one. Number two, probably more importantly, I don't think anyone who gets in those situations ever pauses. Wait a second, I could be suspended for 3 years if I should just be cooler head should prevail.
I don't,
a lot of times there's alcohol
in the
involved.
day-to-day of your
What
life.
Jeremy is suggesting is if it can help, like, why can't you try
Yeah,
it? And I
that's
think
all
it means
I'm saying.
it means explaining in a collectively bargained sport why they can't do it immediately, and maybe it is something that is on the horizon. We
Fair.
do not know.
I've also seen now in both the NFL when it came to Colin Kaepernick, in the MLB when it came to Trevor Bauer, all of the owners just sort of decide, we're not going to welcome these guys back.
Yeah,
into
no,
the
you
league
could
with open
collude.
arms. You're going to collude.
Yeah.
Every
You
league
can
does
collude
that all the
and be
time. I'm not
subject to a
talking
lawsuit.
about. Yeah, and look, the reality is actual legislation within the league would be better here to set an example to show, hey, you'd be suspended for XYZ. But I guess the frustration that started with what Juju brought up that extends to a lot of people probably listening to this conversation is, like, Miles Bridges and Kevin Porter Jr. did these heinous things that put them in a position to where they should not be just welcomed back to play in this league for millions and millions and millions.
You could
of dollars.
argue that both of them, there was a collusion of sorts. They sat out for a year.
Sure.
So, like, you could argue that happened. For Bridges, he went back to his original team, so it's not like someone else. I think
Right.
Porter Jr.
It's the money on Porter that really sends it over the edge.
Now
too.
here's a question I asked on
and also players that have more of a market than Porter does, too. We haven't had, like, the superstar. We haven't had the Pete Rose moment in the NBA to really see, like, hey, league, are you prepared to not let a player the likes of Ja Morant play another game.
Yeah, we've
They
got two different Porters going in this conversation.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. I mean, I understand the confusion there, but they haven't had that moment either.
So I'm going to ask a question I asked on this very show years ago after one of these countless incidents of domestic violence, and we've been moaned that in this country we're awful, like our laws don't do enough to protect women. And I said at the time, what country does? What's the country that has great domestic violence / sexual assault laws on the books? Because I'm struggling. Like I keep hearing, oh man, we do a terrible job. Like who does a good job of this? It feels
But don't
like,
we want to be the best? Like
No,
I don't
I get it.
understand
Yeah, but
that
I don't necessarily think the NBA is going to be on the forefront of making us the best.
I'm asking, Jeremy, this is what I'm asking. I'm asking, point to the country that we can at least mimic what they're doing. Oh, yeah, we want to be the best. Let's start with who's the best. Let's mimic.
I don't know. I thought we were the leaders. I thought that our biggest corporations and cultural leaders are the ones that are supposed to try to set the example in theory here. I know that we don't. I know there's a level of defeatism that comes with that. But it is frustrating to see. That's all I'm trying to say is being in this position, looking at the league that you want to love and celebrate and seeing these things celebrated is frustrating.
More uplifting content next. I promised more uplifting content after the break. Apparently, I was incorrect because I've been told Jeremy Taché has to talk about Miami Heat offseason. So, Jeremy, take it away.
Wow, that is not a fair setup at all.
Look, let me give you more bad news on the front
please,
end. It appears Brandon Montour is headed to the Seattle Kraken. Brandon Montour, that's courtesy of Shane O'Brien from the Missing Curfew boys over there. So Tough break for a local market, but good for him to secure that bag. Miami, South Florida, and its sports scene right now, a little frustrated. It looks like we got Kulikov back, though.
Yeah, 4 years at 1.15 per year.
So he's going to close out his career over there. By the way, absolute unit. Was not familiar with his game.
Oh, yeah, he was big in Game 7, man.
Yeah, Jeremy.
That's pretty cool.
He saved the Panthers. Oh, wow.
When it comes to the Miami Heat, thus far the only move that's been made is re-signing Kevin Love. He declined his player option, came back on a 2-year deal. Nothing has really changed. Haywood Highsmith and Caleb Martin, as we've mentioned, are free agents. There were the draft picks of Khalil Ware.
No one can give you a 3-minute stretch quite like Kevin Love can these days.
Oh, yeah.
There are 3-minute stretches that convince you if he's got the right matchup out there, this dude is the same guy he was in Cleveland.
The master of the outlet pass.
Great passer.
My biggest disappointment on draft night is discovering that Ware's first name is not Kal-El. I was like, oh, wow, he's like Superman. And then I was like, no, it's Khalil. I'm like,
but he has Kryptonian in his Instagram and Twitter bios.
Okay,
so
mixed
it might
messaging.
be,
Mixed messaging.
maybe it's
great
pronounced
franchise
Khalil.
for him to land with. This is a guy that they question his passion for the game.
It is.
Yeah, I read the internet.
Yeah, it is a good space for him. He does stuff for the Heat that they just simply have not had for the last several years, which is athleticism at the 5, because you've been playing Bam
behind Bam.
Thomas
because
Bryant was
you've been playing either over the last few years Omer Yurtseven or
Who just got waived.
Dwayne Dedman.
Remember the
or
Yurtseven
Thomas
takes?
Bryant. Oh yeah. Bam was out for a few weeks. He had 10 straight double-doubles, and everyone wanted to build the franchise around
He's
him.
available. Perfect 5 behind Bam.
But
Was he on Dan's list though?
of top 12 centers.
Or
Stan-
Pat Riley?
It was Stan Van Gundy.
Stan Van
Okay.
Gundy's list. Yeah.
We all know Stan.
Yeah, I'm getting a little restless here. The group chats are starting to get restless, Jeremy.
So the today was always going to be one of the more frustrating days of the offseason if you're the Miami Heat, because they were never going to be in on the big free agents. Given where they are in terms of their salary, given where they are in terms of their draft capital and the ability to just shed salary, they were never going to be in on just signing guys who are available in unrestricted free agency. The move, if the Heat were going to make a splashy move this offseason, was always going to be a trade and seems to remain that way. Now, Donovan Mitchell has been the name floated. Jake was just on the show earlier saying it seems like a done deal back to the Cavs.
Splash.
I am intrigued what you think about maybe why Donovan Mitchell hasn't signed quite yet, because now a lot of the suitors that were available to try to pursue him before have made their decisions and already cashed in on their capital. And the further things go along, the more a demand of a trade to Miami, or even I would only extend in Miami, makes that possibility seem real from Cleveland to Miami. But there are other guys out there. I don't know what the deal is going to be with, say, a Zach LaVine, who they say Chicago might need to attach a pick to in order to move. So maybe you don't have to blow up your whole team.
Yeah,
to
he
get a
was
guy
rumored
like
to go
that.
to Golden State.
Yeah,
and
and-
And then Golden State was like, nah, we're just going to cut Chris Paul instead, actually.
Pretty hilarious,
Right.
actually.
It's crazy. And so I don't know what Miami's ultimately going to do here. I will tell you this.
Can't have Zach
From
LaVine be the
from
pot
a,
at the end
from
of
the
this
Heat
rainbow, dude.
perspective, if you listen to what Pat Riley had to say at the end of the year at his end of year press conference, his view was if Jimmy Butler had played more games and been motivated in a regular season alongside some of the other guys following suit, that they would have been 4, 5, 6 games better. And then in turn, at the top of the Eastern Conference last year, when you look around at the East, the only team that you know for sure has gotten significantly better is now Philadelphia with the addition of Paul George. Otherwise, it's a KCP to Orlando.
Right. But
It's the
Philadelphia
Knicks
would have been the 7th seed.
changing things. These teams have
Philadelphia
gotten
would have
better.
been the 7th seed that you would have been the 2 seed for, and Philadelphia would have done what they did,
Well,
which is beat you.
I mean, they beat you. Whatever. That's another debate for another time.
You're,
but
what,
the
you're,
East has gotten
you're
better.
giving off run it back vibes.
No, I'm not trying to. I'm trying to tell you what I think is the mentality
This
for Miami
is why
if
we're
they can't
running
get
it
their
back.
trade.
That's what Jeremy's telling
Yeah,
us.
the
Because
reason
we
they
can
think
count
they
on
can.
Jimmy being healthier a year
Look,
further in.
The reports that you had come out when Jimmy said he wasn't going to sign an extension and was going to stay in Miami was quote unquote the most motivated like he's been to have a great regular season going into a contract year.
You're struggling delivering that sentence.
I'm just
into a
talking to
microphone.
you about what it is.
No, I
right?
appreciate
this is
it.
what's out there.
But
You
you're
asked me to
you're already
update.
defeated because you're now the Heat propagandist and you are spreading Heat
Hold on.
propaganda.
I got an important Jimmy Butler question. As you know, Jeremy, I'm a huge Brazil soccer fan. Been watching all their games in the Copa. Neymar's at every game in the box. No Jimmy Butler. Why?
He's at the X Games.
Why is he at the X Games?
He's doing everything.
His buddy's got some important shit going on in his life.
He was playing poker with Neymar, I think.
Neymar's his best friend.
Yeah, but he's not doing anything important other than just watching Brazil.
That's important, Mike.
But
that's important.
Neymar's not playing.
It's important to watch and to support. It's important. It's important to be there when Vinny goes like this into the camera. That's important. More important. Look at my skateboard. Oh, can you sign my sign? I don't even know who he was asking to sign his sign. Just some random kids. Some random kids at the park. Hey, I like your skateboard moves. You're really cool. Hey, are those airwalks you're wearing? Dope. Sign my sign. No! No!
I will say, as like a Heat fan, get that guy as far away from Neymar as you can. Because if he approaches the end of his career the way that Neymar is approaching it, you got bad vibes.
Shut your
there.
mouth. You don't speak bad of Neymar.
For the audio audience, what was that move that you just did?
I don't know. I don't know skateboarding moves.
It was like
looking into the
hand to the temple.
Hand to the temples and sticking his tongue out.
And it's a nanny boo boo.
Yes, he did. And he did it because the dirty bastards over there were trying to get. They got mad because he's too nice with it. He's too nice with it to try to get physical, and that happens a lot. Happens a lot when you're Brazil. When you're just better at everybody at everything, they get mad. And like, you know what? I've got to go to the dirty stuff.
So you're gonna be cocky Brazil guy even when they're down.
Down? What are you talking about down?
I mean, they're kind of
big game tomorrow. Big game tomorrow, Mike.
Big win for the Porters.
On my flight from Phoenix to San Francisco to go see my family, a lot of Colombians on that flight because Colombia played in Phoenix the last game, and they were all like, "Oh, martes." I'm like, "Martes, I'll be there. Well, I won't be like in spirit. I will."
I really didn't want to give you guys the here's the Heat reasons to run it back.
It needed to be said.
I do want to ask Amin what the deal is on the Donovan Mitchell side of things.
I'm glad you asked that question. So for those who don't know, Donovan Mitchell has 2 years left on his deal. The last of that is a player option, which where the cap is, we expect him to say, "To hell with that. I'm going to tear it up and become a free agent," unless he signs an extension right now. So he's eligible to sign an extension, but he hasn't done that yet. Cleveland is in this weird place where the Garland-Mitchell thing doesn't quite work. Mm-hmm. One of them's got to go. Garland's under contract.
Garland always finds himself in that situation with that franchise.
I feel bad for him.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that he's due $37 million next year, so I don't feel that bad for him. But he's under contract for 4 more years. So they've got cost certainty with him. Mitchell, who many people believe to be the better player, but he's got the cost uncertainty going on. So when you say, Jeremy, they haven't signed an extension and all these other places are starting to eat up, basically make their plans for the near future, I believe one of two things. One is Cleveland is saying, look, let's give new head coach Kenny Atkinson an opportunity to play with these pieces before, we commit any which way. The other is, like if you're Donovan Mitchell, you're like, I'll play it out. I'll see how it works. But we've just shrunk the universe of possibilities to more and more the places where I'd like to go. And one of them obviously is here.
What don't we know? Because I would assume that there are
what the aprons are. We still don't know that.
You got to find it out.
I guess you're hanging your hat on, well, Mitchell hasn't signed the extension yet, so maybe there's something there. And the other thing that you're hanging your hat on is, will Ishbia be rational about where his team is right now? Will he try to move Kevin Durant? He was pretty publicly strong against the notion that they were going to be selling anybody. I don't really think there's anything else there. And then we're all of a sudden taking the company line of having to practice patience with a situation down here where we're all out of patience.
So Steve Ballmer bought the Clippers in 2014. And this year, 10 years later, they finally had the moment of, I'm richer than the next 15 NBA owners combined, and even I can't spend my way out of this because it's not a money thing. It's the way the system is designed. It took them 10 years to find that sobriety. Matt Ishbia is not getting that sobriety in the next couple of years. They're going to go balls to the wall on everything until someone else, meaning a player, forces their hand and say, look, I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
But they're
with a combination of the team being bad.
And I'm guessing that's why a player would say that. He would say that the team was great.
I mean, it depends on what you believe, but maybe there were whispers that Durant may already be there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think. I think he's fine, but also he's not like, this is the best place ever. This is basketball nirvana.
Yeah.
I think
so, is there a name that we're not considering that might be available, like outside of the Durant Mitchell thing, that maybe you can keep an eye on?
Well, I mean, Jake Fisher told us Lauri Markkanen is one, but I don't know if
that's like in that Trae Young class of.
Wow. How about
in my most desperate? Maybe my fancy gets tickled.
again, going back to the overpay. Denny Avdia, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and Malcolm Brogdon, who's an asset. Mikal Bridges, 5 firsts and a pick swap. You're telling me DeJounte Murray Murray goes for Larry Nance and 2 firsts, and that's it? That's it? No, Atlanta's like, we don't want much. We don't ask for much. We just give me a rotation guy and a couple of picks.
From a Hawk to a Pelican.
Ah!